Hey everyone, Vancouver Radio, episode number, don't know, I'm going to be honest, I don't know. I am currently busy on my UK tour, so I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm getting podcasts in the bank, and this will be released when it gets released. So instead of me screwing up the numbers, which you know I'm very good at, we'll just negate the numbers and we'll crack on with the show. So as of recent, a lot more has sort of happened in body type nutrition and with our education and our team expanding and stuff. And I thought it would be good to start to involve more of the coaches that we have on board here at Body Type Nutrition, showcase their skills, what they're about. And a good while back, earlier on this year, we brought on board Stephen Aish, mindset coach, to kind of look more at the kind of the mindset, the psychology, the issues that people have mentally and emotionally around not achieving their goals. Because for me, it's a massive disconnect with the fitness industry, and I know you know that because we've been talking a lot about it on probably the last 30 or 40 podcasts. So I wanted to delve into some other areas that we haven't talked about so far on mindset, and that leads me to introduce Stephen. Stephen, hello.
How you doing, Ben?
I am tippity top. You have just come back from Disneyland being a big kid.
Yeah. Does that mean that I can say it was awesome?
You can, yeah.
I went on those roller coasters day and night.
Good, mate. I bet, it's not a cheap trip. You've got to get your money's worth out there.
Got to get your money's worth, yeah.
Crikey. So, Stephen, give us a bit of background for people. I don't think people sometimes... Whoa. Was that the bat phone?
That wasn't the bat phone.
No?
That reminded me to turn the phone off. See? We're ad hoc here, mate.
For people that don't know who you are, give some background, because you've got a very varied background in how you developed in the fitness industry.
Basically, do you want the 1 minute, the 2 minute, or the 3 minute version?
You do what you want. We're rolling.
Right, so we roll. So basically, at the age of 10, I was a mouthy, skinny little bugger and put into taekwondo classes because the parents thought you're going to go to secondary school and get your head kicked in. So did that for 26 years, ended up teaching my own classes for 15 years in taekwondo, branched off into a lot of other styles, mainly because taekwondo is predominantly legs and I really wanted to train the hand balance. So I done Wing Chun, praying mantis, Shaolin Kung Fu, the weapons training, the proverbial kind of Ninja Turtle. Then I think it was about 2000 was introduced to kettlebells. Done them ever since, taught them internationally as a training provider as well. Developed a pretty good grip from that. Then moved on to Olympic lifting as a coach. Everything that I've mentioned, I've not only taught it, I've also competed in it as well. And then 3 years ago, I asked myself possibly the only question worth asking. Are you happy? And instead of, I call it the Djokovic, that return serve where life's good, you brush it off and carry on. Mm-hmm. I realised that the answer was no. A lot of what I did was for show. It was because there was problems with building some really meaningful and deep relationships. And there was almost a mask of hiding behind the skills and talents. And I took a year out. It actually took me a year of immersing myself fully in a very different gym, inner science as we call it. And by doing that, I learned the nature of suffering, the importance of language, how outside can disempower you. The content that you play is extremely powerful. Then I constructed a course, a half-day mentorship, where I can fast-track people on the same journey. Because not just in this industry, but on a larger scale, a lot of people are waiting for permission to live. They're reacting to stuff that has never happened or that has already happened and they can't change. They're spending so much time thinking about stuff and suffering. And basically my purpose now, which it took a long while to find, is to help as many as I can.
I'm really intrigued because when we look at this kind of mindset area and change and people developing as people,
mm-hmm.
I'm now starting to think, are people scared of making the changes that they need to make because of how that might change their relationships. So the reason why I asked that question is you said 3 years ago you went and immersed yourself in this for a
Completely.
year. Yeah. So you've got a wife, you've got
Yeah.
kids, you've got friends, you've got family. Like, I'm intrigued because you've taken a very profound shift mentally.
Mm-hmm.
How did that change your relationships? Because just your wife, married you for the guy that you are, and almost you're now different. Should people be worried about that?
Not at all. Do you know the interesting thing? The wife's from Thailand and Buddhist, not as in practicing, but that was what she was brought up to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, she just looks at me and went, we know this stuff. This is second nature. You think that you're arriving and have got this kind of inspiration and purpose, and we've known this for thousands of years. So
you were just catching up.
I'm catching up. She says, nice of you to arrive, But yeah, I mean, I'd say it kind of, going back to your original question, there's two things. It can be quite difficult because mindset isn't sexy. The people with depression and anxieties and addiction aren't on the covers of magazines. You got the glossy abs and the about stuff like that. And I can guarantee you, 180 of them don't have some level of problem or issue. Then there's a lot of stories being told in that room. Everyone has stuff.
Just jump back 20 seconds for me because the signal went. Sorry. Let's hope it's...
Are we back? Yeah?
We're back. Yeah. Sorry. Jump back 20 seconds. My bad.
Jump back 20 seconds. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to where I mentioned that, mindset isn't sexy. You've got people with quite serious issues, just ranging from, think of it as like low-level anxiety, fear, stress, looking at time management and relationships, to the big stuff. Depression, suicidal, drug addiction, domestic violence. And a lot of this comes from people that are playing bad content over and over and over again, not realising the impact that has on their life. That they're hardly ever present. That there's a hell of a lot of kind of misalignment with their talents and what they're doing with their time. And that's a big one for me in the fitness industry, because mindset is seen as a buzzword that isn't sexy, it isn't cool. It's, biceps, broccoli, bench press, and calling people out. Yeah, if you, by definition, by your role as coach, as trainer, as mentor, don't realise that the only way you can ever get someone else to develop is based on the mind that speaks the content, which is the knowledge that's going to help them. No one cares how much you deadlift. It's not about how flowery your meals look. Can you communicate effectively to help someone bring awareness to the content they play, the problems that causes, and then help them to change through awareness? That is coaching.
When I think about the fitness industry, this is what I suppose makes me a little bit sad, but then I understand why, because the people aren't ready to face this stuff themselves. I've had conversations where they've gone, oh, this mindset stuff is just bollocks. And I look at them and I think, you do know that your mind controls every action.
Yeah, and the thing is, everything happens twice, because you think it and then do it. And for most people, they'll think it, worry about what other people should say or think if they do it, and therefore they're left with inaction. Now, I can tell you one thing. No one that is happy will ever say that mindset is bollocks. So you instantly know what comes from a person is indicative of what's inside them. The people calling others out and saying that mindset is rubbish and we don't need this, and they're hiding behind the physique or their credentials or how they look and what they've done in the gym. Happiness isn't coming from a person that is throwing out toxicity to the world. And to simply dismiss something because it isn't cool, because you might be called out by your little cliquey group, is quite sad. Especially when your job is to help others, not pull them. I say to people, do you hurt or do you help? And that's a very simple way to assess the importance of your work. I've never hurt a single person with mindset. I thankfully never hurt them in the gym either. A few taekwondo mishaps, yeah, it happens. But do you aim to make that person's life better by them investing in you? Or are you simply there to pull in money, send out, templates that have kind of, none of them are bespoke. It's that change the name at the top, deliver the same content. And what I've seen online, especially with a lot of these groups, is everyone's after the fast track, the quick version. And they're scrambling over other people to become successful instead of helping them.
So moving away from whatever might be happening in the fitness industry, I'm intrigued because I am currently myself careering around the country teaching my content, and as I've pulled this stuff together and I've been teaching it, I've started to notice really prominent themes on what I think is most important with people. Now, you've currently been doing some seminars as well with some of your newer content, and I'm wondering, you sat down and thought, right, this is what I want to teach, this is what I want people to learn and develop on. And as you've actually got in the room in front of these groups and listened to the questions and the problems, what's really starting to pop out at you with some of the stuff that people are still struggling with mentally and emotionally?
I think the good thing with any coach is that you begin to observe patterns. You get to understand body language, the negative language that comes out from a person, the things that are holding them back, what it is they're looking to get to or do long term, and why they're potentially sabotaging that. And what I've realised is, not just in the fitness industry, but people at large, they've put effort into developing certain things. For example, you go to uni and get a degree, or you go and get a skill-based job, or you train for however many years it takes you to do a London marathon or compete in a competition. But unless you spend serious time developing the mind, most people have the equivalent of a toddler running around chasing shiny objects and breaking things. Because they've never... a great example is I had a client that had spent years working on a physique, entered a competition and dabbled with meditation, and it didn't work. And I said, you've got a massive imbalance here, because everything's been put into the physical and the external for feedback and gratification. And you still feel terrible because you're looking outside for happiness, not realising that it's a journey, not a destination. And when you accept yourself fully and stop allowing outside to have a big impact on you, as in blame, guilt, fear, that kind of thing, then you can live in peace. And unless you go looking for problems, you'll find that there is peace in every moment.
So talking about fear is one of the things I wanted to speak about today. Fear obviously raises its head in many forms. I reckon people are scared to lose weight. They're scared to be successful. They're scared to jump jobs. They're scared to leave their part. Who knows? Where has so much fear come from in society?
A lot of fear comes from your negativity bias and your inner critic wanting to keep you in the safe and familiar, because based on evolution and our reptilian brain, you are not at risk if you don't do much at all. You leave your house and start driving a car or crossing the road or embark upon the unknown, all of a sudden that risk factor goes through the roof. However, the other thing which is very important to understand with fear is it is only valid if your immediate environment is currently a threat situation. For most people, they're worrying about stuff in the future and projecting that is either never going to happen or is very unlikely to happen. And the issue there is the brain does not distinguish between content that's real, content that's remembered, or content that's vividly imagined. It will relate to anything seen or thought as real. This is why horror movies scare us. This is why you see something and have a reaction. You can have a thought and instantly change state by activating your inner pharmacy suite. The thing here is to ask yourself a very simple question. Is this real? If you're face to face with a mugger or a wild animal, or there's a threatening situation in this moment, there's going to be a parasympathetic response, and you are geared up for fight, flight, or freeze. If you're sitting here projecting stuff, for example, I had a client that was wondering how to respond to a negative comment they'd got on a Kindle book that didn't exist. Projection, viewing content, you believe it's real, and you roll with it. And that is the quickest way to produce suffering, because you're going to come up with the worst variation of that situation. Think of it with an ex when you don't hear from them. we instantly go to the worst case version of that.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, looking at fear, I have very low barrier of fear. I've taken many risks, and I think anyone that's kind of successful in any degree in their brain has taken, in their domain, sorry, has taken an
Yeah.
awful lot of risks to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's a very simple process. Like, people will look at me or look at other people they might view successful
Yeah.
and say, oh, I wish I didn't have that fear. I wish I could make those decisions. I wish I had that opportunity. And for me, fear is a case of I'm more fearful of not making that step and not
Yeah.
progressing and thinking,
Absolutely.
God, shit, I might have to stay in this box. I want to get out of this box. I want to stand on the box. I want to smash the thing in.
Definitely.
So how do I don't know. I'm not sure if you've quite given people the information to do it yet, but I have a very simple mindset around it, and people won't. How do they literally, or can they literally lift themselves to say, well, hang on, how do I turn this around? What words do I need to be saying to myself?
It's quite simple. If you can meditate on a life that is currently a continuous now, as in what you're getting day in and day out, I would call it Groundhog Day, and then realise that you may have to suffer and go through a lot of pain to then become successful, that is worth it, rather than that constant known white noise of living in fear, hiding in the shadows, not believing you're enough. And I always say, get a guide, get a help, for example, if you wanted to learn Olympic lifting, you're going to find a quality coach rather than get a book and follow some YouTube videos. Get a guide or someone that's already done it and learn from them, a mentor. I mean, this is serious stuff. We're not teaching people how to cook poached eggs or ride a bike. We're teaching people to self-manage, become independent, and understand that they can live from conscious choices instead of habits and reactions. And for one of them, for the most part, the biggest thing I come across is fear, especially in this industry. People not putting out quality content, which is good, because of fear of judgment. What if someone says this? What if the wolves come in and attack me? What if I get pulled down? Realise one thing: nothing can ever impact you without your permission. And I'll be brutally honest here, and I'll shoot from the hip. I had a client sitting on my sofa for a consultation. I said, in all honesty, if someone said to me, Steve, I hope you die of cancer and your family burns in a house fire, I wouldn't budge. That is where I'm at in terms of inner peace. And I'm not pretending here. That's from the heart, 100%. I don't give people power over me. This is simply words, air, vibration that I could completely change state relative to. That isn't someone in control. I even had people angry that I'd said that, and they said, I'd feel bad for you. And I went, well, that's also your choice. It means nothing to me. The only way you can get me angry would be to physically attack my children. Other than that, I do not respond to the noise outside, mainly because it isn't for me. I also don't project problems into the future, because that's the quickest way to sacrifice now, which is the only time and place you can actually get your work done, which creates that future. For a lot of people, it's a paradigm shift. And while some of them need a nudge and some accountability and a guide, some of them need a stick of dynamite. And I've yet to destroy a comfort zone with anything but a stick of dynamite or a sledgehammer. You know, some people really have to go through some hard graft, come face to face with the fact that they do not like the person in the mirror. They are living a life based on banter, pretend, and trying to fit in, instead of being that authentic, vulnerable them, because they've already convinced themselves that that isn't good enough. And that's all you've got.
Coming back to a comment you said earlier, where, and this is obviously prevalent in many areas of the fitness industry, is everyone looking for the quick fix. Now, if I walk into the gym with you and have an Olympic lifting session, I'm going to see some physical progress fairly quickly, even if I think, oh, I've become a bit more mobile, I've become a bit more upright, whatever. The problem with mindset, and this is where I talk to people a lot about my meditation and why I do it, is I have a certain mindset, you have a certain mindset, and both those mindsets are practiced. Now, people can't sit in a seminar with you or me and look at this fear concept, and I can't and you can't probably give them a magic sentence that's going to change that around. But
No.
if they take some sentences and some words, and this is where I think the power of meditation lies, and starts to repeatedly say it as a mantra,
Affirmations,
affirmations, how do you convince people to spend that time doing it? Because there's no instant reward. If I go and meditate now and I've never done it, I'll think, oh my God, that has done nothing for me.
What did I get from that? Yeah.
Exactly. And for me, that's where the disconnect is.
Let me give you a great example that I do in the workshops. It's a practical technique from NLP. And people say to me, how much NLP do you use? And I go, oh, about that much. I use 2 or 3 techniques that I've slightly tweaked so that they actually have a bigger impact. One of the things, it directly relates to athletic performance. It's called they call it the circle of excellence. I upgraded it. Think of a weightlifter that psychs up. Similar to Tony Robbins before he goes on stage. There's a pep talk, there's that walk around, there's that ritual of getting in the zone. I use this with people that are absolutely scared shitless of talking in public. Mm-hmm. Within 10 minutes across the board, I have got them to stand in front of the group and talk in public. Some of them are even confident enough to go and run their own workshops. What was stopping them? Fear. What changed? The realization that this was all a projection and wasn't real. They had viewed content of things going wrong that had never happened. Mm-hmm. And until that observer, instead of the victim, realized that none of this is true, they were constantly running away from what they already thought had happened and gone wrong. The affirmations didn't sit well with me for some time. I just thought, sit there. You've got someone obese that's sitting there affirming that life's well and I'm losing weight and I feel great. And every cell in your body knows that's not the truth. Until I'd done a little bit more research and looked at how brainwaves change, as in from alpha, beta, theta, kind of pre-hypnotic, suggestive, groggy, that kind of thing. That's when you can have a bigger impact on the subconscious. So if you're in a deeply meditative state and you start to use affirmations such as, I am completely confident in my abilities. When your unconscious hears that hundreds, if not thousands of times, that is going to start to be a new part of your world map, mindset, or jigsaw puzzle, however you want to label it, that begins to override the default reactive mechanism. This will go wrong. I've had people that have been extremely in poor health, firm health, for the first time ever. They've not only been ill, they've been focused on getting rid of ill. So that spotlight's always been on illness. They've affirmed health. They've physically broke out in a cold sweat, felt sick, and got the shakes. It's a powerful thing, the mind. Very, very powerful.
With meditation, if people are sitting here right now intrigued, going, yeah. all right, I'm ready. I'm gonna give it.
What's it all about? How does that work?
Where would you tell people to start?
Right. I mean, you got apps like Headspace. To be honest, Ben, you can go on YouTube, type in guided meditation, mindfulness meditation. People like John Kabat-Zinn, which I think created mindfulness years ago. There's absolutely hundreds. Some of them have got the visual, some have got the background, so there's kind of music. You've got Tibetan singing bowls, you've got ocean sounds. Meditation is mindfulness, which is awareness, which is being present. If you haven't filled up now with stuff that isn't here, i.e. past problems or future worry, you don't need meditation because you are present. But for the average person, meditation is a very good tool to bring them to this moment without conditions or attachments or wanting, I've got to get rid of now because I've got to do this thing. So they're in tomorrow, or happiness is in tomorrow. Or when I've lost weight, I'll have arrived. Or when I've got this, I'll be somewhere. Which means that by default, you're miserable and nobody now. And that's the big problem, that people have put success in tomorrow. Meditation can ground you.
Okay. Another key word or key aspect of people's problems, I think, is guilt. And guilt, I think, is something that is intertwined. Definitely, it's got to be from a societal point of view. I would say guilt is definitely more prevalent in the female side of the population. You might disagree, from experience. Where's that come from, and how do you look to work around this? How, you know, because guilt is a horrible emotion.
Guilt is absolutely. I actually don't deal much with guilt. Just being totally honest.
Yep.
I haven't come across many people where that is their underlying problem. You watched the Tony Robbins documentary, didn't you?
I did. Loved
I think
it.
the key thing there is he's able to go right in and peel that onion back to the core reason that you are suffering. And most of my people I work with, it's actually fear.
Okay.
It's a fear based on being judged. And I think guilt could tie in loosely with that. Because again, are you talking a guilt of what's already happened or a guilt of what would be said if something's done? Give me a bit more detail on
I
that.
think both, but then the latter is probably more linked to fear.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I asked.
Yeah. So I suppose I'd probably look at the former.
Former, right. Okay. The key thing there then is that the past is a choice for people to carry around. Now, I say, I've got people that have had depression. We're talking rape victims, abuse, 20-year class aid. I've had everyone in that you can imagine with everything possible. The reason being is that the mind's the mind. We've all got the same hardware, brain, but the software, the operating system, is a construct of your journey, the people you've interacted with, the experiences you've had, your learnings, how you've empowered words in a certain way. Failure in the wrong mind stops people making phone calls to go for job interviews. Yeah, for other people, it doesn't actually do that much. It's just a word. So going back to guilt, the key thing here is understanding that by constantly playing content that you do not accept, you reinforce it. You give it airtime. You hardwire it. You believe that it's still unresolved. And that can be quite problematic. I'll give you a great example. I had a client that had serious issues with an ex-partner that had another wife and family and fleeced her for everything she had. And I'm thinking, right, obviously that's going to have a huge impact on someone because she was having nightmares. She actually didn't want to go to sleep. That's how bad it got. She didn't want to go to bed because she knew that these nightmares were just going to kind of hit her like a hammer. Then she mentioned this, and I thought, the penny's dropping. I'm getting some clarity on it. But then she mentioned, and I wish him death every day. And I thought, to have that much anger contained within you that only hurts you, not the other person, because the poison does the damage to the vessel it's stored in. To have that much toxicity for another person is why you are suffering. And she was able to gradually reduce that over time and work with that. Because that element of guilt, of projection, of wanting to bring someone else down because of what they've done, they didn't know where this person was on the planet Earth. They could have been anywhere. But still holding that hot coal, hoping that they hurt and suffer from it, was what was causing suffering. And I said, it's quite painful, but you're going to have to forgive them unconditionally and accept that your choices dictate your life, not what's happened in your past. Not replaying old movies that cause pain because you're hoping for a different ending that you'll never get.
I've mentioned kind of society and how we're programmed to think sometimes, and I think this is interesting because when something happens to us, other people expect us to be angry. Like someone might throw a hammer at you, and you move out the way, it doesn't hurt you, and you're like, whatever. And someone will look at that situation and go, Stephen, why are you not angry? Like, the guy just threw a hammer at you.
Did it hit me or not?
I know that's a really silly example, but I'm relating this to, definitely the fitness industry, because you spoke about, there's so many arguments and people about bitching at things, and I get people that throw stones at me all the time, and people say to me like, Ben, I don't get how you don't react or don't say anything or don't get pissed off, and I'm like,
choices.
I have a choice to be angry, and that anger derails my thought process. I'm on a path and a journey to help other people, the more
Yeah.
airtime I give that person, the more unsuccessful I become.
Of course, yeah.
And that's an even worse emotion because I want to be successful in anything I do.
You'll never help someone angry by getting angry at them and fighting them, because they're already fighting themselves.
But people actually still don't appreciate the fact that it is a simple choice.
It is a simple choice.
I have a simple choice to be angry or I don't.
Do you want me to nail that one down in 30 seconds? Done, hook, line and sinker.
Go.
Right. We're not sure if it's attributed to Buddha, because it's not on Wikipedia, so it could be a bit, But anyway, Buddha's in this small village doing his teachings, and as he walks out, there's a guy leaning on the fence, and he starts cursing at the guy, saying, "We're sick of you turning up here, teaching all this nonsense, corrupting the people, go away and never come back." Buddha's a chilled out guy, he's a bit taken aback by this. He said, "I'm sorry." He said, "Yeah, come in here, teaching all this nonsense, go away, we don't want any of it, it's rubbish." He said, "Let me ask you a question. If you got a present and you give it to me, but I refuse it, who does it belong to?" He said, "It would be mine." He said, "And it's exactly the same with your anger. Keep it, it only hurts you."
I like that.
Because it is a choice.
It is.
You've got to understand that, short of someone physically attacking you, you are largely immune from the world and the people out there based on choices. And I think the key thing is we just spill over into the realm of taking things personally. When someone is angry at you, they don't throw a rock to hit you. They want to get rid of the rock, as in think of it as a word. When you take that personally and have to do stuff based on it, you've invited yourself in based on a victim mindset to suffer. When a train's late and you're angry, you took it personally. It wasn't because you were on it, it was late. When the broadband is not working because you've got an important email and you're complaining, or there's been a detour because there's a fallen tree, it wasn't because you were coming this way again and they've got you twice this year. When you're silly enough to stand on that stage under that spotlight and say, "World, I'm here, deliver all of your good and bad," you're going to invite yourself in for suffering. We're not so important that the world happens to us. It doesn't. We have a choice that safeguards us from jumping in and playing victim and reacting to what we think is a very hostile place full of crazy people that are out to get us. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's all in the head.
Before I sort of wrap up this show and the themes that we've been talking about today, is there anything else? I mentioned at the beginning that you've been doing your seminars and your tours. Is there anything else that you feel that can tie up our conversation today that you maybe want to talk to people about, or anything that we just haven't covered today that you think is
absolutely
prominent?
Yeah. If you are not happy, and it doesn't have to be me. There's not my way. There's multiple ways. Ask someone that has got what you want. If you're struggling with business, get a mentor. If you want to be an athlete, find a coach. If your nutrition's bad, get a nutrition coach. If you're not happy, find a mentor, or I hate the term guru. Find a guide or someone that's been there and done it, and learn from them. I immersed myself in a year of meditation, of TED Talks, of reading books, of anything on neuroscience, brain plasticity, placebo, nocebo, you name it. Understand, a few names: Les Brown, Wayne Dyer, Alan Watts. Immerse yourself in a world of positivity, because negativity is a choice. It's out there, but if it starts to get in here, it's you that open the door. So ask for help, get some guides.
And I think people, as a result of you saying that, might think, well, I don't have the money to hire a coach, it's not as easy as that. Well, sometimes it is. Like, if people like my podcast...
That's a barrier, yeah.
Exactly. It is a barrier, but it's an easy workaround. This is my podcast. I've done over 210 hours of free content. Yeah. Now, if people have not got to the end of those 210 hours of free content and developed as a human, I'd be gobsmacked. Like, how does that happen? If people came and followed you on Facebook, they're going to passively learn some really cool stuff.
Absolutely,
and they'll get to a point where they're ready to say, right, I need that now. And I've got the money to do it, or to upgrade it. You just talked about an app called Headspace. that's obviously not going to be expensive. I don't know. Does it even cost money?
Don't even know if it costs money. No, I don't think so.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I don't think money is really a blocking factor. People again use it as a reason not to change. Surely.
Absolutely. You usually got time and money are the big barriers because we react unconsciously to default habits rather than allowing ourselves to choose the stuff that's good for us. You know, like someone offers you a drink and you're thirsty. Oh no, I'm fine, thanks. Oh, actually, no, I really want it. You know, there's a default. Unless we go in and have a little tweak around with the system, we just become reactionary habits.
Okay, so wrapping up, if people want to come and learn some stuff off you, explore your mind and the stuff that you teach, where can people find you?
Well, I'd say the best place is go on the Facebook page, Stephen Aish B2, whack some links underneath here, or just put in BTN Mindset Coach on Facebook. That'll ping. There's a load of videos, there's some live streams. I mean, I've had people that have messaged me just from reading posts. They have quit a job that was unfulfilling and decided to live their passion and purpose. One woman went on to become a personal trainer and do a course. She says, I'm not here to do a dead-end job. I want to help people. And that was the catalyst to realise her purpose. There's also a few free mindset books as well, which are available through the page. And as of literally last week, there's a free short course with several videos looking at fear, meditation, the importance of information processing, which I've had some fantastic feedback on. And from beginning of September, I'm running a live 6-week training with webinars and other bits and pieces to expand the net and help more people in a bigger way.
Oh, so when's that kicking off in September?
September the 7th.
September the 7th. All right, we'll
stay for 6 weeks.
Okay, in that case, we will make sure we get that show up before then.
Right.
That's fine. As I sit here at the beginning of August recording it, we'll see what happens.
4 weeks.
4 weeks, counting. Okay, brilliant. So just to re-clarify, if people type BTN Mindset Coach into Facebook, they'll get it, they can explore it. Fantastic. Stephen, thanks for your time tonight. I think that's been really fantastic. I've enjoyed exploring these topics with you, and it's an angle that we haven't covered on the podcast so far. If you're listening to this and you think, wow, shit, like I enjoyed that, I need to work on that, this is maybe the point where I look at my mindset and why I'm doing things and the actions that I'm taking. Give us some feedback. Like, again,
Absolutely.
This will go out on Twitter, this will go out on Facebook, all the usual places. You know, tag us in, ask a question, drop Stephen a message on Facebook. He's there to help other people. You've just heard it. And there's an awful lot of free content that Stephen's got that you can take advantage of, so nip on over and get it. And if you do want to look at the course, the 6-week course, then that's your prerogative. Explore it and dive in head first if you fancy that.
Excellent.
Right, we will wrap it up. Otherwise, you can find out more about Stephen Aish on the Body Type Nutrition website, bodytypenutrition.co.uk. You can see his profile, what he's done, what he does. I know many people that I've mentioned Stephen to have had a chat with him on Skype, gone and spent half a day with him, read his books, and not one person has not messaged me back and said, do you know what, that's one of the best investments I've ever made. So you've got to fix this mind stuff.
They call me Morpheus, and on a final note, the reason I unplug people is because if you are a PT that only has food and exercise, you are missing the biggest chunk to grow your business.
I would agree. I would agree. Right, thank you everyone for tuning into the show. I hope you have enjoyed this week's episode. I will see you on Monday for the Short and Sharp show. We'll have another fantastic guest on next week. Otherwise, have an awesome week, and I'll speak to all you lovely people soon.
Bye, guys.
Hey everyone, Vancouver Radio, episode number 214. This is a short, sharp Monday show, and I'm going to go over a question that's coming